Okay, so. And then we go over to Vajrasattva, and especially what I would like to talk about is like the four opponent powers, because they are vital really to all purification practices, because, you know, I mean, if I look at myself, and if maybe other people as well, if just reciting mantras would bring me to enlightenment, I think I would be enlightened long ago. So it's not enough. This is the thing, isn't it? In order for the mind to be really to purify, the same way actually as a karmic imprint to be made, to be formed, to be created, then also it needs 4 factors so that it becomes like very strong karma. You remember those 4 factors? I think we talked about them, isn't it? Anybody wants to tell me? Well, the most important one is what? Let me help you a bit. Don't be shy. Just, you know, press the space bar and say
regret.
No, regret. No, that's for purification. No, how a karmic imprint will get formed, created. It also has 4 factors.
You have an object.
You have an object. Mm-hmm. Is that the most important one?
No, intention, maybe.
Intention.
Exactly. The state of your mind. It's the state of your mind. This is what really determines whether the action will become positive or negative. But I think because we learn, you know, we learn, I mean, we learned when we were kids, the 10, you know, the 10 commandments or something like this. So do not do this and do not do that. So we have a tendency to just look at the action. But it's not the action. The most important thing is the state of your mind. And when it says intention, also, it's a little bit misleading, because for us, when we hear intention, it's a very conscious intention, isn't it? That I think, okay, now I'm going to lie, or I'm going to kill. Well, with the mosquito, it's pretty obvious that there is a very clear intention. I have to do that. But otherwise, very often, you know, it's not as clear cut as we think. So intention is more the state of your mind, which then creates some kind of energy that pushes us into doing the action. So even if sometimes consciously we think, or we are aware that this is not a good thing to do, still, you know, we say whatever we know it's not good to say, or especially with the mind. Do you see what I mean? Yeah. So but Tara is right. So it's the intention, or more the state of your mind, because state of our mind, we know, I think we know a lot about anger. We know a lot about desire or attachment. And we have learned how these minds distort the object, and how these minds have a lot of energy, and how these minds then make us do actions that, if we would be totally calm and not overcome by, especially I think, anger and desire and attachment, then the action would be difficult, we would be different, or we wouldn't even do the action. Yeah, so this is why it's really important to kind of very often during the day to look at the state of your mind. And I think, as I said already last time, I fall into the trap again and again and again also, and not to judge ourselves too much, and to really understand is like when karma ripens, it also ripens on the level of habit and tendencies. So that even if you get up in the morning and you make a very strong decision and say, okay, today I'm not going to get angry, you cannot prevent yourself from getting angry if you have an imprint from a previous moment of anger that has not been purified. This is why purification is so important. That has not been purified, and that imprint or that seed comes in contact with the situation, with the thought, with the person, you cannot help it. It will ripen as anger. There is no way. The only possibility you have is to be aware of it, and then to be strong enough or aware enough or determined enough to say, no, now I'm going to shut up. I'm not going to say something. And to really almost forcefully take your mind away from the object, but it doesn't want to go away, because these negative minds, they need objects, they need thoughts in order to be able to continue, because otherwise you take your mind away from the object and you just look at your anger or your desire. Anger is much quicker, by the way. Yeah, we always think anger is such a big thing, but anger is much easier to deal with than desire and attachment. So when you just look at your, at your state of mind, and you just look at it, basically, you just hold it, you look at it, very quickly it will dissolve. But the ego doesn't want to do that. The ego wants to be fed with thoughts. This is a bad situation, it's a bad person, and look what he's doing. Then we go to other people and we want to, reaffirming that this is so and this and that. And there, if that person that we are going for to be reaffirmed that, yes, this is a bad person, kind of lo and behold, if the person says, oh, but the person also has good sides, and they're actually saying that to help us to let go of our anger, what happens? Has it ever happened to you that a very good friend that you trusted, that this very good friend has the same bad opinion about this kind of obnoxious guy as you, and you go to be, to go and tell your story, and the person is actually saying something different? How do you react? You say, oh yeah, thank you very much, I totally forgot. In my anger, I totally forgot that the person also has good sides, or there's also people who like that person. Do we say that? No, not at all. That's what we should actually also train to say. We don't have to say it to the other person, but we could say it to ourselves, oops, yes, it's true. Or let's say it's partially true that this other person also has positive sides. So then, but that's so difficult, isn't it? It's so difficult because anger only sees the negative side of the person, and it definitely doesn't want to hear anything else or anything different. But before we start with this whole thing, one thing that I think is really important is taking refuge. So, right. I'll share the screen if I can. Can you give me the screen share kind of ability? Okay. No, it still says I can't do. You see, now I could get very angry or impatient or this and that because, Dalia nodded. So then I assume that, yes, it's okay. But I still can't do it. Now? Yes. But then very often we use anger or frustration. We think it will be faster and quicker, but it's another thing that is totally not true. Okay, so just, I'm not going to do the whole thing again. Just reflect from your own side. If I take refuge, am I inspired? If I take refuge, do I have devotion to the past? If I take refuge, do I remember the Four Noble Truths, especially the first two ones, that I'm creating my own suffering, situations that I don't want? And do I remember then the truth number 3 and 4, that it's possible to be free from all suffering? And do I remember the past? Do I feel fortunate? Do I feel joyous knowing where I want to go? So there's a lot of positive states of mind that with just these few lines, you can, because you've studied quite extensively also, so you know what the Lamrim is, the past, the incredible result of full enlightenment. I mean, come on, how can we not be joyful? Even the whole, the whole world is in a mess at the moment. But doesn't matter. This whole mess of the world cannot destroy our Buddha potential. But we need to nourish that, because we don't grow up with that, with that kind of, nobody tells us when we are small that by nature, the basis is good, but it's just covered. So we have to train that also, to remember again and again and again, especially when we are in negative states of mind. Hey, but below all this, is the clear light. The mind who is absolutely not defiled. The same way, as if for many days it's gray and it's raining and all this, you can get depressed. If you are in Cyprus, maybe not. Maybe in Cyprus you're happy when it's gray and when it rains, isn't it? And also in Israel, so because Ariella is from Israel. So, so it's all kind of, again, it's all subjective, this whole thing. But here in Switzerland, it's like people get depressed and we forget that, behind the clouds, there's the blue sky. So all it needs to do is for the clouds to go away and then the sun will come out. The sun shines every day. It's just that we're not aware of it. So it's a good example also to remember that underneath all this crap, underneath all these wrong views and attachment and aversion and jealousy and self-centeredness and all this, underneath is our Buddha nature that we can never lose. So do we remember that when we take refuge? Or do we take refuge a little bit like one takes refuge also in Christianity, maybe in Judaism? I don't know Judaism so much. When we need help, then we start to pray. Oh, please, help me, protect me. So we do it like this, then it becomes very theistic, taking refuge. Taking refuge is like the Buddhist refuge is, first of all, remembering where we want to go. Second, that we have the potential to get there. Third, we trust the methods of the Buddha, that if we apply them, we will get there. So we're not asking for help. Buddhist prayers are not really asking for help. Sometimes it sounds a bit like this, especially if we do Vajrasattva, we ask him to purify. But if you remember, and I'm sure you're familiar with Vajrasattva also, if you remember, 3 factors we have to do ourselves. 1, the purification then comes from Vajrasattva. But if we don't do these other 3 factors, then nothing will happen. Vajrasattva cannot do anything for us. So all this, if it is present when we take refuge, and it can be a training so that just taking refuge, your mind lightens up and the negative emotions are not so strong. We train to, every time we take refuge, we think about these things. Then with time, we don't have to think so extensively anymore, and we can just say the words, and then the joy and feeling fortunate and knowing what we want, becoming very clear, and all this comes spontaneously. It's kind of included when we say these words. Then, of course, it's not just, especially we have to be careful when we do purification practices, that we do them with bodhicitta, not just because I don't want to kind of experience the suffering. It's already a good motivation, but it's not enough. We want to purify because we want to become like our gurus, and especially like the Buddha, who can lead and guide all sentient beings to a full awakening. And if we have a lot of negative karma, there's no way we will be able to experience the bliss of the union of emptiness and conventional truth. Absolutely impossible. So that's why we want to purify. So as quickly as possible, we can become like all the Buddhas of the 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By my practice of giving and other perfections, may I become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. Sangye chudan soki chonam la changcho bardo dani kyapsu chi dagi chin soki pesonam gi jola penchi sangye jopasho. Okay, and then we go to the, maybe first, there is a very short sutra that you might not have seen, which unfortunately it's not recited very often. It's just one page. And it talks about these 4 opponent factors. So we can you see the text? Yeah, I can make it a bit bigger. So we can just recite it together. And then again, I can send it to Talia if she wants, and she can send it to you guys. So the Noble Sūtra entitled Teaching the 4 Factors from the Words of the Buddha. So it's actually coming from the Buddha. Then the Tibetan and the Sanskrit we leave aside. And so it's just like all the sutras. It starts by homage to all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. Usually it's like Namo. Namo is also taking refuge, like it's homage and also taking refuge. So thus did I hear at one time, the Blessed One was dwelling in Sudharma Assembly Hall in the heaven of the 33, together with a great gathering of 500 monks and very many bodhisattvas, mahasattvas, including Maitreya and Manjushri. So you already know it is a Mahayana Sutra, because there is bodhisattvas present. Then the Blessed One said to the bodhisattva mahasattva Maitreya, O Maitreya, bodhisattva mahasattva, if you possess 4 factors, the misdeeds you have committed and accumulated will be overcome. What are these 4? The action of repentance, antidotal action, the power of restraint, and the power of support. So sometimes these powers are in a different order, but doesn't really matter. So the action of repentance is to feel intense remorse for any non-virtuous action you have committed. Antidotal action is to put great effort into virtuous actions once you have committed a non-virtuous action. The power of restraint is to make a pledge and thereby refrain from any similar action. The power of support is to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and not to forsake the mind of awakening. By relying on such powerful forces, you will be immune to misdeeds. O Maitreya, Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, if you possess these 4 factors, you will overcome any misdeeds that you have committed and accumulated. The Bodhisattva Mahasattva should continually read the sutra, recite it aloud, and reflect and meditate on it, doing so many times. Through this, the effects of negative conduct will not come about. Once the Blessed One had said this, the whole assembly, including the Bodhisattva, Mahasattva, Maitreya, the monks, bodhisattvas, and the ranks of gods, such as Shakra, were overjoyed and full of praise for what the Blessed One had taught. This concludes the Noble Mahayana Sutra entitled Teaching the 4 Factors. So if we look at these 4 factors, so it's what Talia had said, the action of repentance is to feel intense remorse for any non-virtuous action you have committed. So it's not guilt and it's not shame. Although, you know, if you look at the 10 positive factors, the 11 positive factors, when you do Lorik, I'm sure you've done that also, studying mind and mental factors. You've done that already a little bit. Yeah, so you have like 6 root delusions, 20 secondary delusions, and 11 positive mental factors. So the first 2 ones, if you look at old texts, are called shame. No, the first one is faith, like trust. This is very important. Trust that this is going to work, because otherwise it's like this is not really working. But the problem with us, with the trust and with the faith, because we're so materialistic, we start to believe once we have seen something, or once there is a you know, once there's a sign that it works and all these kinds of things, isn't it? That's then we start to trust. And even then, it's very difficult for us because for us, you know, trust and faith is kind of, yeah, it's for people who are a little bit superstitious, but I am the scientist, you know, I want proof. So spiritual practice, by the way, is not like science, although very often now they start to, you know, they start to compare it with scientific stuff and this, and then we trust. You know, if science says, then it's true. The Buddha says, oh, I'm not so sure. Can you imagine how many times science has changed its opinion in these 2,500 years? And still we trust science better than the Buddha? For the Buddha, it's still the same. There is suffering, there's the causes of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the causes. And still, you know, but science is a bit like, I don't know if I talked about this at the beginning. Science is a bit like, you know, you can trust it when it's always the same measurements and the same temperature and the same weight and the same this and blah, blah, blah. And you repeat, it's always the same result. And then it becomes a fact, I think. This is how it is. Spiritual practice, unfortunately, is not like that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, even though you do the same thing at the same time, under the same conditions, the same people around you, whatever. I don't know if you already noticed it. You can be, how many of you have done solitary retreat? Like more than 2 days, okay? Like at least a month or so. Yeah. So anyway, but let's say 1 week. 1 week, solitary, you don't see anybody, they bring the food and put it in front of your door. You're not talking to anybody, you are in the same room. Have you noticed how your mind goes up and down? Like you have days where you say, oh, this is so great, I don't want to do anything else for the rest of my life. Yeah, then next day, nothing changes. Even if you know, if you did retreat at Tushita 30 years ago, the food was always the same. So you couldn't even even the food didn't change. The room was the same. The food was rice, dal, veg. And in the evening, if you would eat in the evening, tupa, and that was it. So, you know, so even that was the same. You didn't see anybody. The room was the same. So one day you kind of, oh, I do this for the rest of my life. Next day is, oh, when is this going to finish? Have you noticed that? Do we ever, you know, when this happens, do we ever ask ourselves, hey, what is going on? So then we start to try to see, okay, what was different yesterday? Yesterday I felt so good. What was different? Did I take a shower before the session or after the session? Did I drink coffee or did I drink tea? We're trying to kind of create the conditions so that this positive state of mind comes about again, but it's not going to work, so forget about it. You know, trying to figure out what was different yesterday. So with spiritual practice is not like science. So sometimes, you know, it works, sometimes it doesn't. And I think this is why faith and trust is so important, that you just continue. And also for me, what was especially at the beginning when I still had a lot of doubts, what was important is to think, okay, do I have a choice? What else would I do if I wouldn't do retreat and purification practices and all this? And then I thought, no, I don't have any choice. If I want to be happy, if I want to be well, if I want to become a Buddha, because bodhicitta and Buddha, I was being a Buddha, I was inspired by that very, very early in my practice. This is the thing that really attracted me. So, so I don't have any choice but to work with my mind. You know, I can create all the wonderful conditions outside, but it's not going to do anything. So that's faith, yeah, that's the first positive factor that we need on the path. So first we have faith that is pretty weak. Maybe we see the Dalai Lama, we see our guru, we admire them, so it's called admiring faith. And then as we start to put the method into practice, we start to have kind of a face that wants to imitate them. We want to become like them. And then the third one is faith out of conviction. We see, wow, this really works. And for that, I think the practice has to kind of, go on for quite a number of years, serious practice, that you really see that it works. And in what way does it work? I don't think, people ask me, okay, are you happier now that since you practice? And I don't think so, sorry to say. But I have to say that I can deal much better when I'm not well. Like, I'm not getting so kind of swept away by it. And I know it's impermanent. I let it be, and, like that. And I just continue. Maybe also this, the diligence to just continue, because I have commitments. And I know that many people, Western people, when you work, I do understand, taking commitments can be quite heavy, but it really helps, because no matter what, you do them. This is it. And then you get into the habit of doing them. Same as brushing your teeth. I don't think anybody of us needs to be told in the morning, hey, come on, you have to brush your teeth. But all of us needed to be told that when we were children. And then it became a habit. And then we see, oh, it's actually quite pleasant to brush the teeth before we go out of the house. And then we do it. So it's the same as with regular spiritual practice. But I think this is to talk about next Monday, isn't it? See, this is how I am. I don't finish when I'm supposed to finish. And I already talk about next Monday. Boh. Okay, so the first one is faith or trust. Then the second two, in the older texts, they're called shame and embarrassment. And this, how can this be a positive factor, a positive mental factor for a Westerner? Because we exaggerate. And also, we don't apply these mental factors at the right moment. Because shame and embarrassment is supposed to be applied before you do the action and not after. Like now it's called integrity and consideration for others. So shame was like, the explanation for shame was that you would be ashamed anyway to do that, even if nobody is present. And shame and embarrassment was explained as you're not doing this because you would be embarrassed when somebody else, like a guru or somebody that you like, kind of sees you. Okay, now it is called integrity for shame, that you're not doing it anyway, and consideration for others. So actually, it's better to explain it like this, because integrity, we remember our integrity before we do the action, and then it helps us not to do the action. Yeah, shame, we Westerners, we apply after the action, not before. But that's not what is meant. Then it's of no point, it just blocks us. And embarrassment also is also kind of, embarrassment comes after the action, whereas when we talk about this mental factor as consideration for others, it comes before the action, because after the action we understand, it's too late. Okay, so the thing is here, when it says repentance is to feel intense remorse for any non-virtuous action you have committed. Okay, so it's that kind of regret. And they always talk about the regret of having drunk poison. You heard that example, haven't you? Like, before you purify, you should feel like the person who has drank poison. You don't feel, you're not going, oh, I'm so stupid, why did I do that, blah, 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 blah. You understand that, well, I didn't know it was poison, it tasted quite nice. But then you want to do something about it. You're not just sitting there and feeling bad about yourself and feeling ashamed or embarrassed or whatever. You want to do something. You want to apply an antidote. So the best antidote, you drank poison, is to put your finger in your, into your throat and vomit it out. That's the best antidote. So by the way, when you do purification practices, we expect to feel the good result already while we do the purification practices. well, excuse me, you know, if you want to feel good to get rid of your poison, you will not put your finger into your throat to vomit. But you can take the how to say, discomfort, or the, you know, it's not comfortable to vomit. You can take it, because why? Because the result of the poison will be, the negative result of the poison will be much bigger than the vomiting. Okay, so don't go into even all your spiritual practices. Please let go of the thought that it should feel good. Sometimes it feels good, then it's very pleasant. Sometimes it doesn't feel good, but it doesn't matter, you know. Otherwise, you're like the person, like the patient who says, oh, no, I'm not going to swallow the medicine. It is really bitter. Any of you have taken Tibetan medicine? Well, it's really, so Therese, maybe. Did you ever take Tibetan medicine?
No.
Oh, no. Wow, it's so bitter. It's so disgusting. On top of it, you have to chew it, you know? Yeah, right, exactly. And it's really, really bitter. But you take it. Why? Because there's the trust that it will help. And not just the trust, but also the kind of understanding that I need it. Yeah, so nobody takes Tibetan medicine just like that. Yeah, nobody even drinks cough syrup, even though it's sweet, just like that. And we don't drink too much of it either. So the same thing is a bit like with your spiritual practice. You just need to do it. It doesn't have to feel good, you know. If it feels good, yeah, then of course it's much easier, but then you get attached also to that it feels good. If it doesn't feel good, then you might be aware that something big chunk of negativities has disappeared. Okay, so now also with the to feel intense remorse. So if we look at the 35 Buddhas, if we look at the motivation by Lama Zopa Rinpoche, you know, it sounds very heavy. I don't know if you ever, you know, read the motivations before you do the purification practice. So you have to check if it's not putting you totally down. If it's pulling you down, then it doesn't serve the purpose. It should give you the motivation to wanting to purify, but not because out of fear. And this is why bodhicitta is so important. If it's out of fear, oh, I don't want to suffer, oh, I'm going to be reborn in the hell, oh, it can totally block you. For some people, it can be motivating. For other people, it can totally block you. So, of course, the motivation was done by Kyabche Zopa Rinpoche, who is a Buddha, and who also knows that he's 100% sure that everybody has Buddha nature. So he knows how to push us. But again, you know, it's like you are the judge, you are the kind of the witness of how much you can take. So the first part is really nice. It says, the purpose of my life is to free the numberless sentient beings who are the source of all my past, present, and future happiness, temporary as well as ultimate, including all the realizations of the past, liberation from samsara and enlightenment, from all the oceans of samsaric suffering. Huge task. Have you ever never been overwhelmed by when you say this? All sentient beings? So again, you know, if we think like this with an ordinary person's mind, then it's overwhelming. If you start to think with the Bodhisattva's mind, knowing that we are making progress on the path, knowing that we are purifying a huge chunk of negative karma, you know, and creating the merit that we need in the Bodhicharyavatara, when it says, I think in the 6th chapter maybe, where it says, just to wanting to relieve the headache of one person creates a lot of merit. So think about the mind who says, wow, I want to free all sentient beings from the ocean of suffering. So it's not all sentient beings at the same moment. It's all sentient beings without making any discrimination. This one, yes, and this one, no. Yeah. So, and then as a Buddha, we will also have the skills. So we shouldn't be too overwhelmed by that. So in order to do this, I must achieve full enlightenment. Yes, of course. Therefore, I need to actualize the path. Therefore, I need to purify my negative karmas and downfalls. And now it's, now it kind of, it describes what the hell are. The hells are in the Lamrim, in the Lamrim Chemo, and I think even in the middling Lamrim that Tenzin Zopa, Geshe Tenzin Zopa is now kind of giving us the transmission, it's big description of what hells are all about. So then we go like, yeah, but I don't really believe in hells and this and that. Well, how do we know? How do we know that the hells do not exist? How can we be so complacent and say, well, but of course, then the more moderate lamas, they say, okay, if you can't relate to it, then think about very difficult situations in a human life. Or, as an animal, being in one of these animal factories, just look at these kind of videos that were made like with hidden cameras, because otherwise the owners do not allow these kind of terrible sufferings to be filmed. So that's the more moderate kind of gurus. And then the very conventional gurus, like Geshe Dawa, once in the library, he said, well, about hell realms, that, okay, well, if you don't believe in it, you don't believe in it. But I just want to let you know that the worst suffering on this planet is nothing compared to the smallest suffering in the hells. And the way he said it, it was like, I thought, I had this thought, he knows directly. And then the thought finally came and said, well, how do I know, that they don't exist? But again, if it completely blocks you, then it's not much point of using it. This is why the Buddha also, he taught so many different things in so many different ways, is that for some he said it like this, for some others he said it like that. So we have to find out ourselves a little bit what really brings us forward, what inspires us. I think inspiration and devotion are two very important factors that we need to have to practice. And inspiration, being inspired, is not being very light and very happy. Being inspired is that you have joy in doing it, knowing that it will bring some result. Otherwise, I don't really know how to describe inspiration. But there's a lot of joy in it, even if you feel terrible. So yeah. So I have created numberless causes to be born in the hell realms by breaking the Pratimoksha vow, by breaking the Bodhisattva vow, by breaking the Tantra vow, countless times in this and beginningless past lives. So it's very easy to break vows because they're difficult to keep, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't take vows. It's important to take vows because as long as we are holding a vow, we are purifying negative karma while we are holding the vow. Yeah. So then I have created numberless causes to be born in the hells by creating the heaviest negative karma in relation to the holy virtuous friends, by harming their holy bodies, disobeying their advice, disturbing their holy minds, having non-devotional thoughts, giving rise to heresy and anger, which produce the greatest obstacles to achieving realizations and greatest suffering. Where the people who knew Kyabje Zopa Rinpoche and who were at his teachings, if you have never ever have the thought in his teachings, oh la la, why is this going so long? When is he going to end? You never had that thought? I had that thought many times. Many times, kind of, yeah. I mean, because he's, it goes on and on and on and on and on, like 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. His earlier teachings, many of these teachings, if you listen to the recordings, he ends it by saying good morning. And it's not that everybody was sitting there, very happy that he doesn't stop yet. And then when he would say, okay, we stop here, then you would know he would still dedicate for at least an hour. Yes, so he was kind of living in another dimension. Is like, you know, and so we got a lot. You know, we really got a lot, but sometimes it was not easy, I have to say. And then we mustn't forget, you know, then people say, oh, I don't have a guru. So then, but we mustn't forget, we must have, all of us must have had gurus in previous lives. Otherwise we wouldn't be sitting here doing these kind of things. Yeah. And don't forget, we've been existing since beginningless lifetimes. Then also, then we've done the 10 non-virtuous actions. We have done actions out of anger, out of aversion, out of jealousy, out of definitely self-centeredness, and all these kinds of things. So when you hear all this, that we have, as Geshe Tektok was saying, you know, we have oceans of negative karmic imprints. When you hear that, does it inspire you? Or does it rather kind of you go like, oh my gosh, you know, what does it do to you? This is what that you have to see. You don't have to tell me if you don't want to tell me, but it should really kind of make fire under our bum, you know, so that we get up. Or sometimes they say, you know, when you're lying in bed and you go like, oh, I don't want to get up and this and that. If you live in a country where there's snakes and the snake would fall on your bed, you know, you wouldn't go, oh, just one more minute. You would be out of there. So this is from, I think also to read the 7th chapter of Shantideva is a very skillful chapter, because sometimes, and it's not very long, it's one of the more shortest chapters. It's about enthusiasm. So sometimes he scolds himself, and sometimes he praises himself also in this 7th chapter. I find it very inspiring, kind of to get me going also when I'm like that. Okay, so you have to see for yourself what these kind of words by Gyaltsen Sopa Rinpoche, if it kind of gets you going and you feel like, oh yeah, I'm so lucky, I'm so, you know, I'm so fortunate, because we have so many different ways of being able to practice, you know, so many different ways of doing purification practices. So then he continues, every single one of these negative actions has 4 suffering results. So this is why we use the 4 opponent powers in order to kind of to counteract these results. So the ripened aspect result is, I think, is the power of the action, if I remember well, but I might be wrong. And then the possessed result, the type of environment, is when you take refuge and generate bodhicitta. It counteracts that, because if you take refuge, generate bodhicitta, you create the cause to meet the Dharma again and again and again and again in the future, because you say, I take refuge until I'm enlightened. So you're not born in a place where you can't find the Dharma. So the type of a mind experience results similar to the cause as an experience. So I think this is the regret, or maybe the regret is the ripened result. And then the worst one, the result similar to the cause of the action, which means that again and again I am forced to create the same negative action, is the power of determination. Okay, so this is why these 4 opponent powers counteract these 4 karmic results. So he continues, you know, karma increases and so on. And then not only that, but I'm going to die, and death can come even today. So this is why also it's important, you know, we all want to die without regret, isn't it? So as they say, the people who are, you know, who practice regularly and are good practitioners and find joy in their practice, find it meaningful, not just doing blah, 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 you know, but really doing these practices and applying it in their daily lives also. They look forward to death, to see, well, wow, you know, I wonder what's going to happen in the bardo. Of course, that's also when you study the bardo and the absorptions and all this. Then the next ones, I think they die with confidence, and the last ones, at least, they die without regret. So it's also good to generate the mind that from time to time, instead of always going, I'm not good enough, I'm not doing enough, and la la la, and this and that, I should do more, and this and that. It doesn't help us. It doesn't get you going, by the way. It just blocks you again. So to say, okay, I did this, and then to really rejoice, as Geshe Loden was saying, you are aware that you are aware. 1 second, you should rejoice. So, there's another thing that we're very good at, not good enough, should do more, blah, 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 this and that. Instead of saying, wow, at least I'm doing this, at least I'm not in the evening before going to bed, instead of thinking about all the negative things you've done, then of course you can't sleep. And then you think about all the negative things you haven't done. We never think like this. We never rejoice about the negative things that we have not done. We could kill somebody with our car or with the bicycle, or even without wanting it. We could, cheat somebody. We could destroy somebody's self-confidence and all these kinds of things. But we didn't. So isn't that wonderful? This is especially when you feel that somebody is very restless at the time of death, and they have a lot of regret what they did in their life. And usually it's not really big things. It's not so huge, but it's usually things that they've been hiding. And then because they don't have the strength to hide it anymore, it all comes out. And then they're full of remorse and full of regret and all this. Then it's good to remind them, but they could have done much worse. So of course, again, I know most of you personally, so I know that you're not bad people. So if you are somebody who really enjoys to harm others and who enjoys to lie and all these kinds of things, what I'm saying now, I wouldn't say it like this. Yeah. So what I'm saying now, that I know that you're really taking care, and you're doing a lot, and you're doing, from my side, you're doing your best. Because if you can't do more, that means it is your best. Can we start to kind of admit that, or acknowledge that, or appreciate that, and to really rejoice about the good things that we do, instead of kind of walling around in the negative things that we do? Might be not such a bad thing. Yeah. So we want to die without regret. So it's really important to also from time to time to just think, wow, great, I did that. Maybe it wasn't so big, but I did it. How wonderful. Just like that. Okay, so this is still with the 35 Buddhas, because this is what we didn't finish last time. So this, I think the picture is here, right? So it's Shakyamuni Buddha with, okay. So from his heart, like light rays are coming, and here you have these different Buddhas. It's Akshobhya, and then is, I think, Namgyalma. Namgyalma is this one, and this is Kunrig, I think, and this one is Vajrasattva, maybe. Uppala. Yeah, this is Vajrasattva. Anyway, you don't need to be, if you squeeze and squeeze and squeeze because you want to have the realization, we want to have the visualization clear. You just have to make your mind familiar with the image, and then again and again and again try to visualize, to hear it again and again and again. And this is why Lama Zopa Rinpoche also then he made this more easy visualization with here the Buddhas in the aspect of Akshobhya, Buddhas in the aspect of Vairochana, the Buddhas in the aspect of Ratnasambhava, Buddhas in the aspect of Amitabha, Buddhas in the aspect of Amoghasiddhi. So those are the 5 Buddha families. So, because what we're doing here, purification, is basically tantric practice. So these 5 Buddha families transform our 5 contaminated aggregates into the 5 Buddha families, and they transform our 5 mental poisons into the 5 wisdoms. So we're not going to go into that what is what, because otherwise we never finish here. So, but anyway, so sometimes I say, so akshobhya usually is for anger, you know, and it's the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu, the wisdom of reality. Then Vairocana is anger, and it's the mirror-like wisdom. Then Ratnasambhava goes against miserliness, and what's the other one? Arrogance, and it's the wisdom of equanimity. And then Amitabha goes against attachment and desire, and it's the wisdom of discernment. And then Amoghasiddhi goes against jealousy, and then the wisdom of all-accomplishing wisdom is established. And these 5 wisdoms, they work together. You can't just have one and not the others. So with the, you know, the wisdom of the Dharma Dhatu, you know the ground, that the ground of samsara and nirvana is the same. And as it says in Kuntu Zangpo's prayer, knowing this, you are a Buddha. Not knowing this, you are somebody wandering around in samsara. It's as simple as that. So akshobhya is helping us with that one. Then the mirror-like wisdom, to see things as they are. Then the wisdom of these other two wisdoms, they go together. So you have the wisdom of equanimity, is like the equanimity for all beings, to have happiness and to be free from suffering. But then also the wisdom of discernment, that even though everything is empty, but still on a relative level, suffering is suffering and happiness is happiness. And then with these 4 wisdoms, then you go out and you have the all-accomplishing wisdom, and then you can do actions when you have these wisdoms. So this is when you do prostrations to the 35 Buddhas and recite their names, then you work on these 5 wisdoms and on the kind of transforming the 5 contaminated aggregates into the 5 Buddha families. Okay, so the motivation we had. If you have questions, just ask, right? Otherwise, I just keep going. So, okay, so that's the visualization. But again, don't squeeze so much. Then Lama Zopa Rinpoche, again, you know, more than any other lamas, gurus, he adds this mantra and then that mantra and then this mantra. And then you learn all this by heart, and then there's another mantra added. So it's like, he says it is kind of multiplying, you know, doing the prostrations, all this. And since we have eons and eons and eons of negative karma, I think the multiplication might not be a bad thing. People say, what if it doesn't work? Well, if it doesn't work, what's the harm of reciting these kind of mantras 3 times? It's no harm done. And very quickly you learn them by heart, and then before you do the prostrations, you can already start prostrating and you can say these mantras. Okay, so this is the so it's the Tibetan.
Just 5 Buddha families.
Okay, thank you. So this is the Tibetan, and no, this is Tibetan, this is Sanskrit. So this is Tibetan, then this is the English version, this is Sanskrit. There is no English version to that one. Then is this one, you all know that at the beginning, it was just this one, you know, and then it was this one, and then that one, and now is another one here, which is the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, almost as in the beginning also, like, you know, when I started, before every teaching, we would do 3 prostrations with this Lama Tumpa Chomden De Deshin Chepa Ja Chompa Yang, but it's not really done anymore. And the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha, which His Holiness always does when he starts teaching, is also this one. But it's a different kind of, it's a different melody. It's like Lama Tumpa Chomden De Deshin Chepa Jo Champa Yanda Pa Sope Sangye, and so on. Okay, so it's the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha and what it means to Guru, Teacher, Bhagavan, Tathagata, Arhat, perfectly complete Buddha, glorious, conquers Shakyamuni, I prostrate. The other one still goes on, I prostrate, ask for blessings and go for refuge, or go for refuge and ask for blessings. I prostrate. No, I prostrate, go for refuge, and ask for blessings. So this kind of, according to the Kangyur, each recitation purifies 80,000 billion eons of negative karma. So why not do this? Yeah. Okay. So because when we do the 35 Buddhas, when we take precepts, I usually add that also. And then it's, saying the names. So this is not very complicated. And you purify actions of body, speech, and mind. Body because you prostrate, speech because you say the names, the mind because each Buddha then absorbs into you as you prostrate when you're down. Okay, all clear? So we don't need to go through each name. Also, I think there is, each one purifies this and that. And so I don't know it by heart. I just do it with a lot of faith, with a lot of trust. It's good for my body. I don't like to do yoga, but this one I like to do because it has so much more effect. It's good for the body also, and it purifies. And really, I feel the day, if I do the 35 Buddhas in the morning, my day feels, I start the day with much better feeling than if I don't do it. And it takes what? It takes at the most 15 minutes, maybe. And as I said, don't try to learn it by heart with the book and prostrate at the same time. This is too complicated. Make a recording, either of yourself, or if you don't like to hear your own voice because you're not used to it, then I can send you a recording, and you can find multiple recordings also on YouTube or whatever, maybe from your guru. It's good to ask your guru maybe, or, okay? So then you recite the name, and this is also, it's called the Sutra of the 3 heaps. So the 3 heaps or the 3 parts are first confession, rejoicing, and dedication. So this is all here. We don't need to read it unless you want, because it's easy to understand what it says. So that's the confession until here, and then, or while I was here, I had met and not conceal them or hide them. Concealing them is the worst. So, but it doesn't mean you have to go and confess to somebody living. This is actually the best to prevent negative karma, because if you have to negative actions, because you have to go to the same person again and again and again and again, this will really make you stop repeating the actions, because it's really unpleasant. But yeah, if you don't trust the person, and then maybe it comes out at one point, but that's the strongest way of confession, is confessing it to somebody. This is why Catholics are so fortunate, because they can do this, But you can at least, reveal it to the Buddhas, at least that. And it's good if your guru is still alive. If something is kind of really heavy on your mind, then it's really good to confess to your guru also. Okay, then is the rejoicing, whatever roots of virtue, and then here is the dedication. Okay? So that's that. So the 35 Buddhas, are you clear with this? As you said, as I said, if you don't want to do it alone or whatever, then we do it twice every month, like when we take precepts, if you have time to still do them. It usually takes an hour, the precepts and then the 35 Buddhas. It's at 6 o'clock in the morning in Europe, 7 in Cyprus and in Israel, 5 in England. Okay, so that's, so
Katerina has a question, right?
Yes, I have some questions.
Yes, please.
Yeah, while reciting the names and prostrating, do I do the visualization of nectar flowing and purifying? It says only in the end, but do I do that during the prostration?
I think what is really powerful, if you can do that, this is why I usually also say the colors when I lead the meditation, that you think when you are down, one of the Buddhas absorbs it, that particular Buddha absorbs into you. But of course, you can always have nectar. I think what is really good to do is like, because when you do prostrations, you go like this, right? And then you go down. So you have white light coming to purify the body, red light to purify the speech, blue light to purify the mind. So you like that, because you touch these 3 places anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, and then when you're down and you can still visualize that, then you visualize that particular Buddha absorbing into you. If you know more or less the Buddha and the color at the beginning, that's good enough. Then the hand mudras will come maybe with time, because they look the same, but they have different hand mudras. But again, you know, don't go too much into, oh, I need to visualize clearly, because then you push, and then the whole kind of joy is gone, because it's very difficult and your mind becomes very tight. Visualization comes by through repeating. Because look, just close your eyes and visualize your front door of your house or your apartment. Just do that briefly. Is it difficult? Nah, exactly. It comes very clear, very spontaneous, and because we see it all the time. Yeah, so like this. Also, it's good to have an image of the medicine Buddha in front, 35 medicine Buddha, 35 Buddhas in the space in front of you.
Okay.
Okay.
And I have 2 versions, but I usually use the short one. But in both of them, it has the confession part at the end, like the one, all those, you 35 Buddhas and others, as many Tathagatas, straight after the prostrations. And then it has the general confession. And then again, the visualization. And it sort of seems to me like it's repeating again and again. It's the same, going over the same.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly the same negative actions. Yeah. So yeah.
So, but I do all these parts. The best is to do all of them.
Yeah, well, if you can't, if it's too long to do the general confession, then you can leave it out. Usually when we do the 35 Buddhas in the morning session, I don't do the general confession, because also people have to go to work. When we do Nunes, then there is time in the sessions. I do the general confession also. You see, very quickly you will learn that by heart. And then, you know, if you have a recording playing, but you can say it at the same time, and you continue to do prostrations, or while when you say all those 35 Buddhas and all the others, please pay attention to me, you can just kneel and say the confession and the rejoicing and the dedication. But once you know it by heart, very often people just continue. And it's really interesting to see, because last time we did Nune in Israel, so there were 2 new people, and the others were those who usually just continue with doing the prostrations. And I forgot to say that if they want to do the confession and rejoicing and dedication, they can just kneel or just read it. So everybody was doing prostrations until the end, because they didn't know about the option. The moment they know about the option that you can do, you can read it, very often they stop. So again, you know, it's up to you to decide what you want to do, whether you want to just really concentrate on the confession and the confession and the rejoicing and the dedication, then it's fine to just read it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to do it as a preliminary practice, the counting thing, so the count, because when I do the prostrations, I'm not quick enough. Like reciting is quicker than a prostration, so it doesn't together. So how do I count the prostrations?
There is these counters that you put, like a finger ring, you put on your finger, and you click. You know, it has a number on top. It's like a stone on top, like this, and it goes around your finger, and below there is a kind of little thing that you can click, and then it adds.
Okay.
I don't know where. Well, if you go into the internet, maybe you can find it somewhere. So you can do like this. What I did, but then I was still young and I was doing prostrations in a very, how to say, you know, a very constant kind of speed. So I would count it. I would count, just count it, just do prostrations and count it for 15 minutes. And then when I knew, okay, in 15 minutes, I do that many prostrations, then I would do either half an hour. I wouldn't count anymore. I would just say what I had to say. Because also when you do prostrations as a preliminary, it's not necessarily the 35 Buddhas. It can also be Vajrasattva, it can also be refuge. Mm-hmm. This is your guru who would then tell you what. So then I would just kind of multiply it by the time that I was prostrating.
Okay. Well,
because I didn't have one of these counters.
Yeah.
But people have. I'm sure you can find them in Chinese shops or, you know what I'm talking about? Anybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I used to have 2 lying around, but the battery died. But okay. It's yeah, you can get it in shops, maybe online. I'll find it and send it to the chat later.
I'm sure you can find that.
Thank you.
But wouldn't that be another way to do it? Is that if I do like 35 Buddha practices, and then I count when I do one time, how many prostrations I do, and then just multiply that.
Yeah, also.
I only do 1 prostration per name. I waited.
Okay. No, I usually recite and continue to prostrate. So sometimes it's 2 names per prostrations. So when you do like 100,000 prostrations, then you have to count the prostrations and not the recitations. But you can also, you can do, you say the name, you do 1 prostration, then you say second name, 1 prostration, of course. Then you do 35, 35 prostrations. If you don't continue to prostrate when you do the confession, the rejoicing, and the dedication, it's also possible. But I think most of the people, they just, you just continue to prostrate, and while you're reciting the names. But I don't think that this, again, it's the motivation that really counts, and this and that, and just see what works best for you. Okay.
Yeah, I did what you did do, Talia. I'm not very coordinated with it. So I just ended up having to do 1 prostration and then I'd say the names. I just couldn't coordinate. So I think it would take me many years to add up to 100,000, but it was okay with me,
Well, again, again, be careful with the numbers, because one can then do these things just to accumulate and just to accumulate. And when I was doing Vajrasattva retreat, somebody who did the retreat, I was doing it in Tushita, 3 months, like 100,000 Vajrasattva mantras. This is best, if you do it as preliminaries, it's really best to put aside 3 months and go into retreat and just do that. If it's your first time, best is to do it in a group, because then you get with the energy of the others or the support of the others, you are doing 4 sessions a day. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to do a kind of a solitary retreat, 3 months, getting up at 4 or 5 every morning and do the same session, saying the same things 4 times a day for 3 months, without a break, without any holiday. There's no day off in retreat. So while you are doing this, when you're doing this in a group, you see how difficult it is, then you start to really appreciate that you keep doing it, and you have the energy of the other people who are also doing it. We know it with meditation, just even 20 minutes. If you do it, you decide to sit at home 20 minutes. Yeah, maybe yes, maybe no. You go to the center, you do it in the group. For sure, you will keep sitting 20 minutes or half an hour or however long you decide. So that's why where the Sangha is very, very important. But maybe it's not us, it's not, you know, it's quite good to start like this as Tara and Talia did, and to really get familiar with the practice. But what I wanted to say, so we had one person, she was finished first with these 100,000 mantras. And she, you know, we could see, she was, every day she was saying, oh, now I have so many to go and so many to go. She's so concentrated on the numbers. So then after the retreat, we all went to Nepal, we all went to Kopan, Lama Zopa Rinpoche was there, and she went very happy and very proud, you know, to go and say, I've finished 100,000 Vajrasattva, what shall I do now? And then Rinpoche said, oh, now you can do Vajrasattva. And then she said, well, I just did, Rinpoche. He said, yeah, now you can do Vajrasattva. And then when you've done that, you can do 900,000 prostrations. So this you cannot finish in one lifetime, but she understood it's not the numbers. So 900,000 she cannot finish, but she continues doing it. See, and Vajrasattva, she did really well, not concentrated on the numbers. So also I think in the FPMT, if we 100,000 Vajrasattvas was not so important. What was important, even if you didn't finish the number, was important is you finished the 3 months. So that you wouldn't, you know, get lung and just count and count and count and count. You know, I stopped counting anything. I don't count the nunes anymore. I don't count this and that anymore. I just do. But maybe at the beginning it is important to, especially at the beginning, if you do like 100,000 or whatever, it's good to be able to dedicate at the end, you know, these whatever number you did. But again, don't get too hung up on the number. Okay. Can we go to Vajrasattva? No, then, okay. So we're still with the sutra here. So the antidotal action is to put great effort into virtuous actions once you have committed a non-virtuous action. So for us, what is a virtuous action?
Generosity.
Huh?
Generosity for us. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But a few more. Patience.
Mm-hmm.
Compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Get rid of wrong views.
Mm-hmm.
Did I forget anything else? There should be one more. Yes, there's one more.
It's a lot more.
Yes.
But anyway, that's not what I want to get at.
Oh.
When they talk about, you know, for us, do you ever feel that you've done a virtuous actions trying to be aware? No, huh? It has to be an action. It has to be doing something. Like, you know, first thing came generosity, giving something. Of course, that's a virtuous action. But when they talk about virtuous actions in purification practices, the most powerful one is to meditate on emptiness. Then the next is reciting the names of the 35 Buddhas. Then the next is reciting Vajrasattva mantra. Next is reciting sutras. Next is making images of Buddhas or sponsoring making images of Buddhas. And that's about it. They're not talking about creating virtuous actions with other people. Because you see, when we do meditate on emptiness, recite the 35 Buddhas and all this, it really becomes a virtuous action where we don't get proud about most, you know, unless you go and brag how many prostrations you did and all this. We don't expect the Buddhas to say thank you if we prostrate to them. And meditating on emptiness is neutral, so no attachment, no aversion. So this, then it becomes very pure virtuous action, where we're not getting proud and we don't expect other people to be grateful. You know, being generous is very tricky, because if we're very generous with people, then we always want something to come back somehow, isn't it? We're not just doing it for the sake of it. Yeah. So these are what is called virtuous actions. So you can either do all of them or choose or whatever. But whenever you do it and you have these 4 opponent factors present, then, then it becomes a purification practice. If I give, money to somebody in the street, I have to say, I hardly ever do it with the 4 opponent powers. Whereas if I do like these specific purification practices, at least with those, I have trained myself, or thanks to the motivations of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, where I read the motivation and then the dedication at the end, at least I do it complete. Okay, so then the power of restraint is to make a pledge and thereby refrain from any similar actions. So they usually say, make a pledge, but try to be realistic also, like things that you can abstain from the rest of your life. Then you can say I will abstain from that for the rest of my life. And others where you're not so sure, try to make lifespans, time span, like 1 minute, 10 minutes in the morning, like that. That's quite important. And when you see that, oh, I wasn't even able to keep that, it's good to then, if it's, for example, the 8 Mahayana precepts, then you just recite Om Amogashila 3 times. When and you redo the thing, okay, the next 10 minutes, I'll be more careful. And so we weaken the tendencies and the habits. And then the power of support is to take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and not to forsake the mind of awakening. By relying on such powerful forces, you will be immune to misdeeds. Okay? So then, here it says, continually read this sutra, recite it aloud, and reflect and meditate on it. So just reading the sutra and then not doing anything else is not going to purify. Also, it's already, we introduced the mind to these virtual things, but just reading it is not so good. This is why also because we're still reciting the Golden Light Sutra every day for about an hour since the 7th of October. So before we start, we take refuge, generate bodhicitta, do the 4 immeasurables, and then at the end have a dedication. So, it's really good to start with the motivation and then also to dedicate. That's quite important so that it becomes a complete practice. All right. Okay, so then we go to, you have questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I'm finding it quite hard to do the resolve, the pledges. And especially because since I have a dog since last year, I experience a lot of aversion and anger because he doesn't do what I want him to do.
Okay, so he's your object of patience. How wonderful.
Absolutely. But so like every day when I do Vajrasattva, this is Vajrasattva now, but every evening when I do the Vajrasattva practice, I have a lot of anger moments to confess. And I try to find something for the resolve. And as you said in the beginning, it's really hard because anger just comes up. So I can't say I'm not gonna get angry or I will refrain from anger because that's not gonna work. So I'm finding it hard to put it into practice, like to,
Nobody, Katerina, nobody is asking you to refrain from anger. What you're making a pledge is not to do an action.
Okay, so pulling the leash.
If you have a habit of shouting at the dog, then you say, okay, there will be anger, I will not shout.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also a negative action of the mind would be not just anger, but really ill will, like kind of really wanting the dog to suffer, but you don't have that. So don't be too hard on yourself. As I said, anger, the condition is there, the seed is there, anger will arise. Then what we do with it, this is then in our hands.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when the resolve is not to do actions.
Yeah, okay.
And most
Yeah.
of these actions are of body and speech. So if you hit the dog, then you would say, I will not hit the dog.
I don't hit the dog. No,
Okay.
but it is more actions of the mind. And I feel, and I've never felt that before. I get flushes of really hot anger. So we have a karmic connection. There's something going on. So I can really feel sometimes it comes up like it's such a forceful energy, and it does say, oh yeah, punch him. Of course I don't, but
Yeah.
it's really strong sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes. And it's all quite frightening as well. And I want to get rid of this force, and I don't know what to do. I mean, I don't hit the dog. Sometimes I pull. So this would be something, put the pulling out of anger. But just this experience of, I really want to get it out. So, and what can I do? Is there anything I can?
Yeah. Are you going to a trainer, to a dog school?
Yeah.
So keep going.
Okay. Yeah.
What does he say? Or she? What do they?
Yeah, she's well, maybe I should. Well, I've not actually told her about that particular thing.
Yeah, talk to her about this.
Yeah, okay, I will. Yeah.
Because also it's like we had somebody in Bern in the group who had a dog like this, and she gave up her whole Dharma practice, but in order to work with the dog, because otherwise they would have shot him. So she didn't want him to be shot. She took him from a neighbor, and she got angry at him also at the beginning, but she recognized, she really started to understand, the more I get angry, the less he does what I want him to do. And this really helped her to be very patient with him. And now she can go anywhere with this dog. So, but it took a long time. And this became her object of practice, this dog, Igor.
Yeah.
It's an Australian shepherd. His name is Igor. And I followed the whole process of the dog and of this person. It was very nice, but she had to go to a trainer also. And, they talked not just about the dog, but also about her mind.
Yeah.
And then, purify, as I said, the purification, it takes long time. If our bathtub is stuck and we take a cup, after 4 cups, we don't see any difference, but 4 cups are less. And with time, you will see that we weaken these habits. And then again, what I thought, do I have another choice than to do that? No, not really. And please stop to get angry at yourself for getting angry. Because, I think once we understand, I have no control whether anger arises or not, 0, then we don't get so frustrated. It's like getting frustrated. You put the seed in the ground, and then there's moisture and warmth, and then it grows, and then you get upset and angry. Well, if the conditions are there, it will grow, even if it's something you didn't want, So you have 2 possibilities. Either you follow along with it and, buy into the anger and how terrible it is and and all this, or you just, or you just accept the anger and say, okay, I don't want to be like this, but I have it. It's like, I think it's a disciple of Carl Gustav Jung Schweri, that we had in Bern, who sometimes gave some talks. And he wrote this book, The Dark Sister or Brother. And about these things, he says, I'm not this anger, but I have it, and I have to take care of it. So it's already the step out of the anger. Don't identify with the anger. This is very important. But to say, okay, it's not me, but I have it, and I need to take care of it. And to take care of it with a lot of love and compassion for the one who has this dark sister. Yes, Ariella.
Hello, Ani Losang, how are you? Good to see you. I have a little bit of a problem accepting, analyzing, understanding the anger. It's not me, I just have it. Anger comes up. I can't, it's, what did you just say like a minute ago? I have no control over it.
Over it arising, then you have control.
Over it arising. I have a little bit of a problem with that because, I mean, we should be able to control our...
Okay, again, did you hear what I just said, Ariela? If you put a seed in the ground and the condition then is like it's warm and it's moist, can you stand over this thing and say, no, 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 don't grow? Can you do that? Yes or no?
I can't stand over it and say, no, 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 but if I step on it, it won't grow. If I it won't get sun, it won't grow. So this is why I am the adult in the situation, and I shouldn't let that seed.
I'm telling you, when the moment of anger arises, you cannot prevent it. The next moment, what you do with it, this is the stepping on the thing. But if you want to step on your anger that it doesn't arise, it will grow downwards.
So what you mean is that I can't control.
What Katerina is saying is much better to have it arise, to see it and all this. Otherwise, you try to suppress it, you know. It was a very good image when you said, I can step on it. And then what? Then it will grow downwards and it will make stomach ulcers in you. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes. This is what I am understanding, that it's normal and it's natural for anger to come up.
If we have friends,
the minute that it comes up, that I am aware that anger has surfaced, this is where my responsibility comes in, not to take action, to close my mouth, to turn around and leave, or etc., etc.
Yes and no. To close your mouth at the moment when you're angry. Yes. And to say what you had to say with anger, to say it without anger. Otherwise, again, it grows downwards. Sometimes, you know, anger sometimes is kind of, I'm not saying it's justified, but anger arises because things are not just, this is happening, blah, blah, blah. You know, there is actually good reasons for anger to arise. But if we act out of anger, we exaggerate, it's like we start shouting, the other person is afraid of us and all this. We're not reasonable enough, and again, because we just see one side of the story. So it's important to say what you want to say at that moment, but not with anger. To explain. Or sometimes also when the anger is gone, then we see, oh, it's ridiculous. I don't need to say anything also sometimes. You know, to when the anger is gone, because anger goes, this is what I'm saying, you take your mind away from the object, you go into your anger, you just stay with your anger, it will disappear. And then you start to analyze what you were about to say. And this is where, you know, in Mother Teresa's, when you were working there, before you said something, you had to ask yourself 3 questions. Is it true? Is it kind? And is it necessary? And also, you know, especially with the dog, I think with dogs is more understandable than with humans. We want to control other people. We want them to do what I want them to do. Now, if you have a child, of course, you are responsible for the child. But even neighbors and other people and people in the government or whatever, I mean, who gives me the right that they should do what I want them to do? We have this kind of thing. We think we have to educate everybody. Children, yes, in a way. And dogs, yeah, maybe also in a way. But, you know, with dogs, it's easier to understand. If I tell him once, he won't understand. If I tell a human, we think they understand and can change their habits. It's absolutely impossible. This is what we have to let go. You know, what is the Buddha saying? We have to educate my mind. This is my job, not the minds of others. So, oh, poor things, they're creating so much negative karma, they have to stop. If they want to hear what you have to say, then of course, you know, you do. And with dogs also, I can see, you know, Igor, he is much happier now as an educated dog than he was before. Before he was frightened, he was excited, he was sometimes even, you know, vicious and all this. Now he's such a happy dog. And he's much more freed. It feels that he's much freer, although he is disciplined. And his owner, the lady, wow, she's so grateful to that dog. She has so much patience now. We need objects to make us upset in order to practice patience. So every time, you know, practicing patience is generating the wish not to harm. Being angry, yes, but then practicing patience at all costs. I don't want to harm him, like talking about your dog now. That is practicing patience, already that. So patience is one of the 6 perfections. If we don't have any objects of patience, how are we going to become perfect in patience if nobody is pushing our buttons? And he really shows you where you are. So it's fantastic, you know. It's really good, because otherwise we have lofty ideas how wonderful we are, and it's not even true. But it's difficult, I do admit. Yeah. So what Ariella is saying, okay, she finds it difficult. I didn't find that difficult, because I also had a lot of anger, still have sometimes. I was so relieved when I heard you have no control over your anger. If the seed is there, like, you know, a moment of anger that has not been purified. This is why we are purifying seeds, negative seeds that have not ripened yet, right? So I was really relieved to hear that even you don't want to be angry, you will get, you know, the anger will arise. I find it such a, you know, that it is normal, it is natural, like, yeah, this example, like a seed, you put it in the ground, there is moisture, there's warmth, boom, it will grow. Then what you do with the seed, Ariella, it's better not to step on it, just pull it out. Don't step on it, pull it out.
How do we pull it out?
By doing purification practices, again and again and again and again and again. You know, here there's a little garden here that I have to look after the garden while Sophie's not here. Whoa, you know, I pull weeds, boom, they grow again. Even though I think I have them with the roots, but new ones are coming. I don't get angry at them. I just keep pulling them out. I have no other choice. And it's the same action, you know, as Katerina was saying, I do the same thing again and again and again. If we pull weeds, we pull the same weeds again and again and again and again. But with the weeds, we understand it's not the same weed. It's just of the same kind. You see, with the purification, we think we're purifying the same thing, but we're not. It's just seeds of the same kind, actions of the same kind. Do you see what I'm saying here? Wow, it's 1934. We didn't even get to Vajrasattva. But I think, you know, discussing these things, I think it's more important than discussing kind of methods, how you do it. Because you do it anyway. You do it with Lars. Yeah?
Yeah. I learned so much. But I also can I have one more question?
Yeah, I prefer that you have questions than to repeat the names of the Buddha and say this one is purifying 100,000 eons and this one 80,000 eons.
Because we can read that on the side.
Okay.
Yes. Question about sickness.
Sickness.
And purification.
Mm-hmm.
So because we hang out with a lot of Buddhists, so when we get sick, and people will say, it's it purifies negative karma, right?
That's the ones who say it to, again, you use that when somebody else is sick to comfort them, or you used to say it to yourself to comfort yourself. But anyway.
That is my question. I don't say that to myself. It just when other people say it to me, I thought, I gotta think about it. But what I do is I don't believe it, because when I suffer, when I get sick, if I don't think it is suffering, does the purification still work?
Yeah, of course. It's not really purification. It is, when we talk about purification, you purify seeds that have not ripened yet. Whereas when you are sick, negative seeds exhaust themselves.
Right.
So you don't have to do anything.
But do I need to for it to work, do I have to dedicate and I've been sick for like 2 months now. I just don't pay too much attention to it and it doesn't bother me. But for the negative karma to be exhausted, do I actually have to think more about it and say, that's great, it's being exhausted, or just let it go?
Well, to be honest, I don't know. These are the things only a Buddha knows, because karma is the most hidden phenomena that only a Buddha sees. When it was created, how it is purified, is it purified, and all this. I think rejoicing is not a bad thing, actually. That's what I think. Whether it's more purification or less purification, I don't know. But at least, then your sickness has a purpose. On top of it, if you do Tonglen, and you think, good thing that I'm sick, because now I'm already sick, so it doesn't matter. Me, it's not important now. But now, because I already have this, whatever I have, I can take the sickness of all the others who have the same stuff, because it will not increase mine, but what is important, that others will be free from it. Then it becomes very meaningful. That if you wouldn't have the sickness, you wouldn't do it like this.
No.
With Tonglen, I'm very good at doing Tonglen when I don't have any problems. The moment I start having a problem and I have to think, now I have to take the problems of all the others. Yeah, so it's like, then I have to overcome my ego a little bit, who is frightened, and say, and Tonglen for me works the best when I do sadhana. I am the deity and I do Tonglen. The moment this black stuff I'm in a light body, and the moment the black stuff hits my body, then it just disappears like that. And then when I breathe out, also I breathe in, not through the nose. I find this, me personally, I find this too threatening. Breathe it down to your heart. It's like, but I breathe it in through all my pores, through the whole body. So also I don't have to think who, because then it comes from all directions. You see, I'm a bit lazy sometimes when using my thoughts. So I think, if I breathe in from all 10 directions, then it comes from everywhere, from everybody. So I don't have to think this realm and that realm and this person and this and this. It comes to the body, and because it's like, feathers being burned in fire. It just goes, yeah. And then when I breathe out, also I breathe out through all my pores, and then I become bigger in my suffering mind kind of thing. Yeah, so you can try that. I haven't read it anywhere, I think. I just started doing it just by myself. Maybe you find it helpful. I find it easier to do Tonglen like this, especially when I'm not so well.
So not so much thinking about how much it purifies, like the sickness, how much it purifies, but more like using sickness as a method, a way to cultivate bodhicitta. Yeah.
Or also, using your sickness by thinking, even though you say I'm not disturbed by it, but still, if somebody comes and says, okay, I go like this and then it's gone, you would say, yes, please do like that, isn't it? You would be happy to be free of it. So then to think, it's okay, it's not so big, but it comes from negative karma, so I better be careful not to create more negative karma. And also to say, well, at least that one then is exhausted. Or if your sickness really gets you down, which is really helpful also when you think it could be much worse. Yeah. Then, and that it's impermanent, you know, that at one point it will be finished, like, even if it's only at the time of death, but then it will definitely be finished, that kind of sickness. But yeah, I think it's okay to think that you purify negative karma. That's fine. Because then we see why, and we see that we don't like it, and it will help us maybe to kind of create more negative karma. And then to be very grateful that there's medicine or people doctors that take care of us and all this, and to be very kind to them. Because what I hear sometimes from nurses, how patients are very unkind and very violent and very demanding and blah, blah, and this and that. So then not to be like that. Okay. So we stop here and we do Vajrasattva next time. Anyway, then we do Vajrasattva next time, and it's about how to integrate purification. Yeah, now we've gone through the 4 opponent powers, so that's the most important thing anyway. The other stuff is just technical. And of course, if you have questions about the technical stuff, then of course ask them, but it's like, it explains in the sadhana what you're supposed to do. And I looked at the sadhana that you have in Zurich, in Lhagsam. It's very simple, actually. It's no wisdom beings and no initiation, no sending out light and all this. So it's very simple. So it's good to start with something simple. And then maybe in the future, it's like if you do sadhanas, then to integrate all the other parts that usually go with the sadhana. But this we can talk about next week.
Ani Losang, could you also talk about like next week, if someone is doing a 3 months Vajrasattva retreat, how they should structure their retreat?
I would say go to Kopan or go to Tushita or go to somewhere else. It's so difficult to do that alone. But yeah, I mean, I can make a schedule, the schedule that one usually has in the retreat. But you mean 3 months like doing nothing else?
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, we can talk about it next time. I tell you, I would go to somewhere. But yeah, but then some people cannot. So for some people, it's too difficult to sit in the same room with the same people for 3 months. Also.
Yeah, because you also have to make altar, right? And then torma. So is it getting too complicated then? If one.
Oh no, altar is easy. Torma, you just take a pack of biscuits and you add something every day. That one is easy. Okay. I think it's more the discipline that is difficult if you do it alone. Okay?
Yes.
Okay. So then we dedicate. Then we it's kind of easy because we have everything already ready. So we don't need to come up with our new things. Although people like new things. I don't know if anybody, Katerina was with Geshe Tenzin Zopa last weekend. Yeah, that he said, wow, you Westerners, you always want new things. If the Lama is telling you new things, then you're very happy. If he's just repeating what you already heard 100 times, you're not happy. Ariella, I think, was also you listened. I see you sometimes there. Okay, so the dedication praise is important because what it does, it's like we reaffirm to ourselves why we are doing these practices. And then also the merit is secured. Like they say, it's like you put 1 drop of water in the ocean, then this drop of water will not be exhausted unless the ocean gets dried up, which is quite impossible. So due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of a Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. Then here we can do both, like the conventional bodhicitta and ultimate bodhicitta. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. May that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. May the supreme view of emptiness that has not arisen arise and grow, and may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. Then His Holiness the Dalai Lama will be in Zurich on the 22nd. So I hope you're all going. I won't be able to come because I'll be in Belgium eating chips, of course, French fries, Belgian fries. And but you know, since you are living, Dalia is living next door to the airport anyway. So, and he will be at the Hilton in Kloten, I think, in Zurich, in airport. So it's nice to go and welcome him before he goes to the United States. So we also dedicate all the positive energy actually to Lars, who is not well. This is why we had more time this evening. So may he recover very, very quickly from whatever he suffers from. And then also for His Holiness to his trip to the United States not to be so tedious, and may they find an easy way and not a painful way to alleviate the pain in his knees. Because when he walks, when you see him walking, we can understand that he has a lot of pain. And we request him to be able to fulfill his wish or his promise to live another 10 years at least. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good, all-powerful, Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then this one, for the swift return of Gyabche Zopa Rinpoche, fearless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious one, Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losang, father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You are the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace, what a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three rays of the three jewels, and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Thank you very much. And what I just thought about, negative emotions and Ariella, one of the conditions also for negative emotions or anger or whatever to arise, I like that very much also, is what is called the inappropriate attention. That we give our attention to the object instead of giving it to our state of mind. That's also one.
You repeat again your last sentence. We give attention to.
Like one of the conditions for, like the cause is the seed, what we have. This is the cause. But then it's the conditions that make it ripen, like like contact with the object that we were already angry at or something similar in the past. Frequenting the wrong people, kind of, people who kind of think it's really good to be angry. Getting involved in political discussions. Actually, this is in the Lamrim texts, these 6 conditions for negative emotions to arise, and one of them is inappropriate attention. Like the intention is on the wrong object, and the inappropriate object is your object of anger instead of your anger. Okay, and just when I learned this, and then just when I go angry, and I just said in my head, inappropriate attention, and then poof, the anger was kind of for a short moment was weakened. Because the moment you think that you're able to make the step out of the anger, and so the anger is still there, but you're not kind of in the middle of it anymore. Then it's not you anymore, but you have it. And it's not giving away responsibility, by the way, to say, oh, you know, this is not me. It is dealing with it in a skillful way. Because if it's, you know, say, I am angry and you don't want this anger to have, you have to kill yourself. Because if the anger is you and you want to destroy the anger, you have to destroy yourself. And it's not possible. You can only deal with your anger when you start to understand it is not me. But I have it. You know, Katerina is educating her dog. She understands that her dog is not her, but it's like it's not you, like as a person. But this dog belongs to you. You're the owner of the dog, so you have to take care of the dog. Why? Because you don't want the dog to harm other people. And you want the dog to be a happy dog also. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm trying to analyze it. I'm trying to in a
Don't analyze too deep. Just to be simple, okay? Just be simple. Yeah. Because if I am angry, and anger is oneness with me, anger will only go when I'm dead. Obvious, no? Whereas if the anger is not me, but I have it, I can deal with it. Is that so complicated? No, it's easy to understand, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
easy to understand. It's a little bit more difficult to be
Well,
in the moment with it and
yeah, of course
you
it's
know.
difficult. You see, if it wouldn't be difficult, we would all be Buddhas.
Buddhas. Yeah.
And because we're lazy and we're still not Buddhas, even though we exist since beginningless times, it's also good not to have too many demands on ourselves to be able to do this immediately. And as they always say, first thing is we have it in the head. That's the first thing. Then it needs to go to the heart, and it takes time. But at least it's in the head. At least it's in the head. You know, our way we would like to behave is like this, right? And then how we behave is like that. So the Dharma practice is going tsak, 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 always little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit, unless it's until it's like this. We behave the way we want to behave. Now, there's only two people, or two kinds of beings that are like this at the moment. It's the Buddhas, and it's the Buddhas who think that their anger is, it's the people who think that their anger is a good thing. They're totally one with what they want and how to behave. They want to be angry and they behave in a violent way. So do you want to belong to those? Would you?
Too humble to say I'd like to be the closest I can to a Buddha.
No, but this is not the question. The question was, do you want to belong to those who are violent and who think that violence is a good thing?
No.
Oh.
I'd rather be aware and keep working on it.
Thank you.
Than
Thank you. That's all I wanted to hear. Because we could be those.
Yeah.
Many people at
the moment I'm here because many times I justify my anger. And if you would hear my conversations with myself, oh my God, I am right to be angry.
Yeah. I know you quite well, Ariela. It's
Yes.
okay. You don't need to explain. It's okay. Okay, good. So please be safe, take care, and see you next Monday.